And actually, here, let's talk about this. Because 5 Alarm brought up the other pastor, let's talk about this story. This story here. Unconscionable. MAGA pastor calls for executing rebellious black youth, citing death by stoning in Old Testament. And I want you guys to remember, once again, so you're going to hear here in the next little bit, you're going to hear people pushing back against Hakeem Jeffries telling the dipshit Lawler to shut his mouth, right? You're going to hear pushback from the right saying, oh, the tolerant left. Oh, what happened to the tolerant left? And then they're going to completely gloss over the fact that things like this exist. They're going to continue to act like they don't do any of these things, even though they are the originators of this behavior. And at no point should you ever become self-critical because of these people, because these people are human garbage. A Utah pastor known for her heretical viewpoints has called for executing rebellious young black men under Old Testament law, then invoked a passage describing death by stoning, a statement that underscored the growing overlap between the MAGA movement and extremist forms of Christian nationalism. Project 2025, anybody? It's not like we literally made videos about this stuff. I probably have 10 videos on my fucking stream or on my channel talking about Project 2025. I'm pretty sure the trailer is still Project 2025. During a recent episode of the King's Hall, podcaster Pastor Brian Sauvé argued that the United States government should enforce what he called just laws from the Bible, including those found in Deuteronomy 21. The passage instructs parents to bring a disobedient son before town elders to be stoned to death for being a glutton and a drunkard. Where does this take us? I wonder where this takes us. Oh, just to another story. Okay. When we make this generalization, one of the purposes of it is for policymakers to make the kind of political movements in terms of law and order that would usher in the changeover time of that culture, Sauvé said. So, okay. Suggesting that applying biblical justice could reshape society. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
The actual number of blacks who are committing murder is more than whites. Right. And whites are significantly greater.
60% compared to 13%
percentage of the population. Yeah.
So if you take that, and then you took a law like Deuteronomy 21, which is a just law that God enacted.
Can I just say, look at how fucking weird these two dudes are? Look at these two dudes.
Just take
Jesus
and whites are significant.
Christ.
If you take that, then
can we just say that just these two people, like, you would not leave your children with either one of these men. You wouldn't leave your sister with either one of these men. Both of these dudes are the weirdest looking, grossest looking human beings I have ever seen in my life. And I watch MAGA videos all day long. Look at this weird motherfucker. You would not leave your grandmother with this dude. This dude gives Ed Gein vibes, okay? This guy right here will take your grandmother and wear her dress and her face on his face while he dances around sweeping the floor. All right, this is some Ed Gaines energy right here. This gives serial killer. I'm telling you that allegedly.
And whites are significantly greater.
60% compared to 13%
percentage of the population. Yeah.
So if you take that, and then you took a law like Deuteronomy 21, which is a just law that God enacted through Moses. The law was that if you had a rebellious son, you have a child they're coming up into their manhood and they're rebellious. They don't listen. He lists some characteristics, and even though they're disciplined, they will not turn. He says the fathers to bring them out into the
Bro, what is that Hitler ass haircut too? Why is the side of your hair feathered? Brother, you feathered the wrong side of your head. Why does your hair look like that, bro? Why? Motherfucker, like, no one goes to a barber. Not that I'm an expert on hair. No one goes to a barber and says, give me that shit where I fucking swoop my side hair to the forehead of my head. Nobody gets that. There is not a human being alive that wants to cut your hair like that. There is no way that anybody cut that. It had to have been his sister wife. It had to have been dude's cousin, right?
The town square, this is a rebellious son, and then they stone him to death. They kill him.
And an armed robber would certainly be one of those.
Oh, absolutely. Armed robber, all the ghetto
violent
culture.
crimes.
Basically, take ghetto culture, it would describe this to a T.
He said ghetto culture. Brother, I can't say certain things on YouTube, but I do hope that one day you find yourself in a ghetto and that people have seen this video. That's all I'm going to say.
If you did that over 3 generations, how much violent crime would you have in the 3rd and 4th generation? Much, much less.
The actual number.
Actually, literally, capital punishment numbers prove exactly the opposite of that. So, impressed by co-host and fellow Christian nationalist preacher Eric Kahn on what kinds of behavior would qualify, Sauvé linked a verse to modern crime, saying armed robbery, all the ghetto culture, just like what he just said, right? He added that enforcing such laws over generations would sharply reduce violent crime, which does not even bear out in statistics, regardless of how fucking insane it sounds that these people are absolute disgusting human beings. But also, yeah, it doesn't even bear out statistically. Oh, thank you for joining the Ginger Army. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Funkhauser, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Let's see. Sauvé, first of all, I don't want to call this fucking guy Sauvé. What should we call him? Dipshit with a bad haircut. Dipshit with a bad haircut and Khan both preach at Refuge Church in Utah and promote a brand of Christian nationalism that seeks to align civil government with biblical authority. Dipshit with a bad haircut beliefs reflect an extreme form of Christian nationalism that seeks to merge biblical law with the functions of a modern society. He argues that the moral and social order of the United States should be governed by what he calls just laws from the Old Testament, even those prescribing death as punishment. In his view, societal problems such as violent crime and what he calls ghetto culture stem from a breakdown of family and moral discipline that should be corrected through laws rooted in Scripture like those in Deuteronomy. I could just fucking talk about this forever, and you guys know I can. Of course they're from Utah. Yeah, of course they're from Utah, he hurts. Of course they are. But the reality, being a person that grew up impoverished, as poor as you possibly can in America, the reason people commit crimes in poor areas is because of lack of resources. When you live in a ghetto, the reasons you are more likely to commit crimes is because you are surrounded by nothing but negativity. You are surrounded by nothing but bad outcomes. You don't have any incentivization to get out of these cultures. When you grow up in these areas, there are no jobs that you can get within the distance that you can get to. There's no stores to work at. There are no, there's no Target, there's no Walmart, there's no fast food. Everything is on the outskirts of these places, and these people can't get jobs. You're also constantly kept in this cycle of imprisonment because police officers are constantly going down into these areas and finding reasons to arrest young men. Once you've been arrested once or twice, you don't really give a shit about whether or not you get arrested again and again and again. I can tell you this. I know this for a fact. You cannot punish these behaviors out of people. If you could punish behaviors out of people with the death penalty, that would have already happened. We all know about the death penalty. We all know about prison sentences for violent crimes. Yet people still commit them. Part of that reason is because of mental health. So investing in mental health resources is huge. Part of that reason is because lack of job opportunities and upward movement. And we could help to do something about that by having socialized safety nets like counselors coming into neighborhoods and talking to people, or specifically when these kids are in school, taking advantage of that and getting impoverished kids, lower class kids, help through the schools to find ways to get into better environments. You don't punish these behaviors out of people in the methods that these people are talking about. They are completely ineffective, and they have led to nothing of any actual substance. Zero. Nada. Zilch. By invoking this passage to justify executing rebellious men, dipshit with a bad haircut, is promoting a theocratic vision where civil authorities enforce biblical codes as criminal statutes, a hallmark of the more militant strain of Christian nationalism that frames law enforcement and social control as divine mandates. Yeah, try to divine mandate that shit on me, dog. That's all I got to say. On his website, Dipshit with a Bad Haircut promotes what he calls the new Christendom, a revivalist vision of society governed by biblical authority and patriarchal order. He describes himself as Reformed and Protestant, Paedo-Baptist. Yeah, Paedo. Definitely Paedo. He's definitely Paedo. That's for sure. I guarantee that shit. Post-millennial and patriarchal, proudly noting that these beliefs tend to bother the good people of Twitter.com. Through his sermons, podcasts, and music, Dipshit with a Bad Haircut says he aims to help build this new Christendom, a movement that seeks to reassert Christian control over culture, law, and public life in defiance of modern secularism. Dipshit with the Bad Haircut's remarks sparked criticism online. One person said, these psychos are going to encourage people to take the life of their own children. If you are a Christian or a law-abiding citizen or a sane person, the thought of executing anyone for robbery is unconscionable. Anyone who follows these people and claims to be pro-life is a psychotic liar too. Also, another person said, he who has no sin casts the first stone. True Christians cannot honestly advocate stoning. The rebellious son, Christ preached forgiveness and redemption of the prodigal son. Dipshit with a Bad Haircut is not preaching Christian redemption. He is advocating brutal Old Testament theology. And another person just said, classic racism, the worst examples are taken as characteristic of black culture, but not of white. There's not a lot to say to that. It's just dumb. The people that believe this shit are dumb. And the people that follow these people are dumb. And you know what?
Oh, look at my African American over here. Look at him.
Both of those worked.
I love the poorly educated.
That's how we got here. And look, back behind me right here, Joe Moore's book. Joe Moore's book talking about white supremacy. Joe Moore's book of infiltrating the Ku Klux Klan for the FBI and exposing a plot to assassinate Barack Obama in 2009. He says in that book, if you don't think that the KKK still exists, that it's not out there just waiting for its chance, if not trying to accelerate its chance to get in its claws into the government, in the hopes that there's another civil war in which it can go ahead and take like just a small part of this country and make it theirs, then your eyes are not open. And that the same thing goes for people that believe that this white Christian nationalism doesn't exist. Anybody that doesn't believe that it exists, but there are 100% very easy and verifiable resources to find these people, their eyes are closed and they're morons. And Donald Trump loves you. Donald Trump loves you because you are poorly educated and you are a moron. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and check out that video on the screen now.